presentations done. I used to be on the International Association, and they talked about it coming in too on both sides. So I'm glad to see it's getting to be a reality.
Yeah, we are too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Figure that out and just I've been going so well.
Right.
Tough job, hard shoes to fill, but you spend a lot of quality time. Then she's well equipped for that. Believe me, we've had more than a couple of judges on the ledge.
Yeah, that's right. That's 5:45 last night.
Well, just lining up on that.
Yes, we're still. Yeah, they didn't find it either. They found a couple on there. And they put it back. Does Trish know about this?
I'm exhausted.
I wouldn't say that Jeremy does. What, it seemed like more when we coordinated the process, and I wouldn't even get too deep in the middle of it, because he's working with Jeremy on it. And,
See, you're Richmond,
they put it back on legislative services to try to.
just paying them full time.
Get it done. And I was arguing. They didn't make a copy of the flag.
Exactly what's going to happen.
How you been?
But they left it alone. Yeah, because they were going to do an amendment when I met with them.
All right.
So when you go back to the next session, what do you do?
I'm actually charged with communications.
Okay, you do.
Fellas, how are y'all?
Fine, yourself?
Okay. Ready for us to get back out of Dodge?
Yes, sir. Nothing personal, but.
That's okay, I have too.
I do.
I know it's been a long haul. Sat through a lot of committee meetings, but.
So have you.
Appreciate all your help. You all haven't felt hesitant to pop up and share your views. I just worry about moving. You know what? That's too slow. We would have been not given not asking for your opinions. Not hesitant.
No, we don't. We don't. Although we don't want to intrude.
They love
where we
it.
don't
You
have
can follow.
Well, good.
really do.
Even if we disagree with you, it's okay.
Well, absolutely. You know, but for the most part, the state police prosecutor doesn't need to have the state role.
Yeah. Just the ones that partner.
That's right. Yeah, they were changed and all.
Hilly. Right, a couple weeks ago, right before session started, some jeans and t-shirt, I'm setting up their event for a couple of letters, and it was at me. And I said, hi, I'm Christine, so what do you do? I'm sorry,
We hear about
that
that.
was the best, I said, you're so normal. He said, that was the best compliment you could ever get me. And I said, I had no clue. Oh, God.
So here's where I'm philosophically.
Very nice.
Yeah, okay. Who are, yeah,
You always sit when they have bills.
it's totally just.
They do most of the alcohol stuff.
Some of the transportation, yeah, running back.
But it's a regulation.
Now, you work here, right?
We're dealing with it. I'm on I mean, I'll come back on the lobby for the searching.
Right.
So the difference in your team is all the just had your gym and so on.
Right on the post.
And so we just found out charge Nancy charged very but my brother we're letting, but you know, investigate someone else was, and then this one, I got to do it for the greater one, attorney, and, review the investigation, decide. We were getting calls. We had people who were why would you want, and they were mothers, let them children go. It's a lot of second amendment
They
people.
were talking about one of those, their thing was actually supposed to be.
Oh, whoa, yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many things your child will be doing that,
Yeah, other than that.
you know, study, do some homework, read a book.
God forbid.
Oh, my gosh. Very deep. How? Morning. And let the kids run out and catch this. Go, so whatever.
They don't do it on my account. I think that's more in line with what
And much.
you said. Sure.
I think it's gonna stop a lot of the police. In fact, I can see somebody, they got a lot of people in London.
I bet they are.
It's my continues. The courthouse, you go down,
Yeah.
and my guy, not an easy.
You know, you gotta
In fact, I went to Chesapeake State.
Did you? What year was this?
82. Jim Moody was down there, Jim Farley.
Yep. Farley.
Brooks was the captain there.
Yeah. Okay, good morning, everyone. That's a totally different concept, so, and I think that can solve that problem.
We're waiting on quorum, so you guys can still carry on. The two attorneys down there who were solving the crisis of the Commonwealth can continue to talk until I get one more person.
We're longer.
You ever have this problem? You ever have this quorum problem?
Right.
Whoever will be here to say
Don't worry, Ben.
Okay, the committee will come to order and the extracurricular agendas will be suspended. Thank you, Senator Obenshaw. Committee will report your presence by electronic device.
Just one time, man. Look at this.
Okay, so we have a quorum, so we'll close the roll. Okay, this morning, we're going to take up a bill by Senator Obenshaw first, and this bill, I have delegate rights, so it's set it up, and then Senator Obenshaw, if you explain the concept to us, and then we will take appropriate action.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Last night, this bill was tabled, and this morning I have a motion to take this bill off the table so we can present it.
There's a motion to take the bill off the table. Is there a second? All in favor say aye. Bill's before us. Delegate Wright.
This bill is one that we've heard before, and it deals with the workman's compensation deputies that would like to have advise the commissioner or deputy commissioner of the Workers' Compensation Commission may carry a concealed handgun throughout the Commonwealth without a permit. And this is similar to, identical to HB 2468 that died in the subcommittee before. So,
Mr. Chairman, and I talked to Delegate Miller. I understand what happened to his bill, and he gave me a little bit of background. Let me just set the table real quickly. Last year, of course, we allowed circuit court or judges to carry in courthouses or to carry without a permit. The reason we did that was that even with a permit, a judge can't take his gun into a courthouse, and that's a problem because they're going to wind up having to leave their gun in the car, or if they walk to work, hide it under a bush or something. A permit doesn't do them any good for purposes of day-to-day carry. We should have made it clear that judges included workers' comp commissioners because for purposes of retirement, workers' comp commissioners are judges. Title 65.2 makes it clear that workers' comp commission is a court of record, and many of them work in courthouses. And here's the situation I've got. A workers' comp commissioner came to me and explained, number one, these are every bit as emotional decisions as a lot of decisions made perhaps in domestic relations cases. He had a litigant come into the courthouse. They have court security there. Came into the courthouse and went ape and had to be physically removed, threatening people in the office. This commissioner walks to work every day, and he can't carry into work. He can't go to the clerk's office and get a permit and carry into his place of work. He would literally have to hide his gun under a bush or in a hole if he was to carry to work and go into the building. And we crossed the Rubicon, and I understand the concern about creating different categories. And but we crossed the Rubicon when last year we allowed judges to carry. And I don't think anybody realized that judge's language didn't include workers' comp commissioners and judges. And this is all that does.
Delegate Gilbert.
Mr. Chairman, may I inquire of the Senator through a series of questions if necessary?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Senator, if I heard you right and heard you a minute ago when we were talking, the individual in question who, even if he had a permit, couldn't carry it into work, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so the nature of his work, is it considered a courthouse?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So,
And many other commissioners actually have conduct hearings in district court and circuit court facilities throughout the state.
I see. All right. So and thank you for the standing permission, Mr. Chairman. concerned that those of us who voted against allowing judges this special privilege, I think our stated reason was, well, first of all, the judge can just march on down to the second floor and get himself a permit, right? It's not like it's inconvenient for the judge. I understand why judges may need to protect themselves, but my position has always been that any law-abiding citizen should be able to avail themselves of that right and not have to go get the government's permission to do so. That's just a general philosophical notion. So getting to the heart of it, don't we solve the problem of your constituent being able to carry lawfully into the courthouse if we only adopt what is on line 21 of your bill? Allowing for him to lawfully carry into the courthouse.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm looking at the same.
Well, I'm looking at the sentence substitute. So that whole section there in lines 11 through 22 deals with who may legally carry into a courthouse. And if we add commissioner, deputy commissioner of the Virginia Workers' Compensation Commission, even though if we only adopt that, it would still require those people to obtain a permit like everybody else. It would fix your problem.
And I'd be entirely fine with that.
Okay, I think we have a conceptual amendment, council. Would you relay that amendment to the entire committee?
Mr. Chair. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, the proposed amendment would strike all language from line 23, starting with section 18.2-308, through the language on line 79, ending with harbor master of the city of Oakville.
So we have reduced the size of this bill by 75%, which by any metric would be an initially good starting point.
It's very conservative, in other words, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Well, you go.
And I think it solves the bulk of the problem, which is that the gentleman won't have to hide his gun in the bush when he goes to work every day, if he wants to carry while he's walking to work.
I think so.
But he still has to go get a permit.
And I don't have any concerns about that. I think that's a good
So
compromise
he's
solution.
just like us, except he can go to court.
And I think that's good.
All right, so that's the amendment. Is there a second to the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Okay, the bill is before us as amended. Any questions from the committee? Delegate Simon. Committee will come to order, please.
Mr. Chairman, this may be a question for council. Would this bill allow, in my jurisdiction, Fairfax, the sheriff controls who carries guns in and out of the courthouse. That's her prerogative. We don't have to dig holes and put under trees, there's lockers. So if you come in, you can actually get a locker, you put your gun in the locker, take the key, you walk around with your key, and when you're done, you take the key and get your gun out. So would this bill supersede the sheriff's prerogative to control who can carry guns in and out of her courthouse in Fairfax?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that it would prohibit in excess of existing, they would be treated the same way as magistrates, court officers, judges, treasurers are under existing law.
In other words, the controlling piece is not the sheriff of Fairfax, it's the law of Virginia.
Well, and what we're talking about here, Mr. Chairman, is an exception. So we're saying that it's unlawful to possess in a courthouse unless you're one of these people. So basically they'd be exempt from the prohibition, but they would still be subject to other rules of locality.
All right. Mr. Chairman, speaking of the bill, the appropriate time?
I'm sorry. Yes, you may speak. Do you have a comment?
So, this is the example, I was told the other day or the other week here that we don't support guns everywhere because specifically I think the example was courthouses. And so here we are again, saying that more folks can carry more guns, more places, really everywhere now. I mean, so I'm going to vote against this bill, and I encourage the rest of the committee to do the same.
Okay, so we have a bill. It is.
That was my fault. I'm sorry.
And just so we understand what the bill can still control who actually carries in the courthouse?
Mr. Chairman, I believe so, and the reason for that is that this is an exception section, or this provision is an exception to the rule, so the rule is no one can carry in a courthouse. The exception is for certain people. So if they're already prohibiting, you have to have your gun locked up when you're in the courthouse, that would be because you're already an exemption to this rule. And so those are the rules in place for those who.
So what I'm trying to get at, because I'm an artilleryman and I'm not that bright, right? Mr. Chairman, if I'm an artilleryman is bright, not a lawyer is bright. I'm trying to understand if the chief law enforcement officer who runs the courthouse can say, even though there are exceptions now in the law, can say, yeah, we know you have an exception, but you still can't bring your firearm into the courthouse. In other words, can he do that as a function of his own discretion as the sheriff?
Mr. Chairman, I think I can help. Number one, it doesn't change existing law in that regard. And number two, it allows you to take into the courthouse, but it doesn't govern where in the courthouse you can carry. If there's a holding cell, it is clearly within the authority of the sheriff to say you can't carry in the holding cell or in certain portions of the facility.
Okay, I think I understand. Are there any other legal opinions that would contend with that? All right, people in the audience that supported the bill, we need people in support of the law. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, Bob Sadler, Virginia Citizens Defense League. Philip sends his regrets he can't be here this morning. We were neutral on this bill until about 10 minutes ago. Now, if I understand the amendment correctly, I think it's safe to say that VCDL will be wildly supportive.
All right, anyone in opposition to the bill, if you would come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Curtis Brown, Deputy Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security. Good morning, sir. The administration is opposed to this bill. I do not believe that the expansion of this is required.
Curtis, I have a question. Did the governor sign the judge bill a year ago?
I believe that is the case, but again, this is another expansion.
Apart since then, so.
Well, I believe that this is as Mr. Simon mentioned, an expansion of the.
That was then, this is now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
does the administration, if we're not expanding who can carry without a permit anymore, which is where we are procedurally, does the administration, you don't have an updated how the governor would feel about that, what we just did, opinion, I guess, right?
I would have to go back as
See, these guys are nimble. They can switch like that. And y'all got to be able to do that too. All right. So, I understand.
Curtis,
Thank
do
you.
this. Why don't you go back to the administration and come see me with their updated opinion about this? I think you should give the courtesy to the patron as well.
Yes, sir. Will do.
Okay. All right. We have a bill duly seconded to report this amended bill. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the committee will vote. Okay, has everyone voted? Clerk will close the roll. The bill reports 12-4. Thank you, Senator Obenshain. Senator Cosgrove, thank you, sir, for your patience.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Let's give our attention to Senator Cosgrove. Committee, this bill was not heard in subcommittee. This bill was not heard in subcommittee. It is a agency bill. The state police are here. And so I want you to give your attention to Senator Cosgrove as he walks you through this, because I think it really warrants some close scrutiny. And Senator Carrico will be right with you as soon as we get through this. Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 15.6, the bill authorizes the Department of State Police to submit fingerprints and accompanying records to the Federal Bureau of Investigation to be advised through the FBI's Next Generation Identification RATBAC service when an individual subject to a criminal background check is arrested for or convicted of a criminal offense not reported to the department. which would disqualify that individual from licensure, certification, employment, or voluntary service to that entity. Mr. Chairman, what this does is just basically allow the state police to use the FBI's RATMAC service.
Okay, state police. Why don't you tell us, what the genesis of your idea is, and if you could give us a couple of examples of how this would deploy.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Keenan Hook with the Department of State Police. The genesis of this is, within the past couple of years, the
If you
FBI...
suspend committee, y'all really need to listen to this. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, within the last couple of years, the FBI has come online fully with their, what they call their next generation RATBAC service, which, as Senator Cosgrove indicated, will allow subscribing employers, and they subscribe through the state police, to get information back, limited information, when one of their employees who's subject to a background check commits a barrier crime. So, for example, if a teacher who is subject to a background check, and maybe at the it would be at the beginning of that teacher's employment with the agency, submitted those fingerprints and they were clear, and then several years later goes across state lines and commits a barrier crime, for instance, soliciting a minor or something. If that teacher were to make bond, he or she could be back at work the following Monday morning, and the school division not be aware of it at all under existing law. What the RATBAC service allows is for that agency, that school division, to choose to subscribe to the RATBAC service. It is their choice, and if they do that, then if that teacher gets arrested, they would receive not full information about that arrest. What they would receive is a notification to log in and confirm that that teacher was still employed with the agency, and then if so, the state police would get the record from the FBI and report back either yes or no as to whether there was a barrier crime offense. So the privacy protections are in place, but so are the protections for those vulnerable populations that necessitated the background check in the first place.
Okay, so let me ask you a couple of questions. So Prince William County decides to participate in this program. It's their decision, it's not mandated, it's local jurisdiction and it's agency choice, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And so you decide to go to work as a teacher for Prince William, and as a condition of your employment, since they've subscribed, you have to get fingerprinted.
That's right.
And then those fingerprints would be transmitted to you guys, and then you guys would put them in the RATBAC. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And so in the event, and that would be a condition of employment. So if you didn't like that idea, then you could go somewhere else to find a job. Is that correct?
That's right, Mr. Chairman.
So this is voluntary, and the individual knows up front whether or not this is the case. Now here's my question. So I've been teaching there for 10 years, and I was fingerprinted to do that job. And then ex post facto, the county says, I want to do this RATBAC thing. Do I individually, even though I was 10 years ago, do I need to also now consent to do that, or is that just a decision of the locality that we're going to do this and we're going to capture all the legacies and they're going to be in it to include any new people that come in?
Mr. Chairman, the way the FBI has set up the program, there is a Privacy Act statement required by federal law that is on the fingerprint card or the electronic version of it when the applicant submits fingerprints. Based on that, it is my understanding that prior to entry into the RATBAC program, the applicant would have to either be re-fingerprinted or somehow acknowledge that consent to the use of their fingerprints in the RATBAC database.
Okay, I think you need to work that and make sure you get a clear answer to the patron on that aspect of it. I think I understand it, but we're here to look at all facets of the bill. So I think, personally, I think it's a good thing that, we will know sooner than later when someone has committed a crime, and then the agency, the school division, or whatever, can take effective action against such a person who would commit a barrier crime. So, any questions from the committee?
Yes, Mr.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
please.
So, in the example that was given, that, would the expectation be that that school, division would take action on an arrest, not a conviction?
No. The school division, I don't think, takes any action except
Being aware?
being aware, but then I guess they would suspend the teacher or.
Mr. Chairman, it would be up to the school division what action they took in response to the notification of the arrest. I think suspension would probably be a likely result for a situation like that, but that would be up to that school division.
They wouldn't have any, they wouldn't be doing anything illegally, that's something courts do.
That's right.
Okay, so it'd be administrative whoever, I believe. Okay, other questions for the committee? Is there anybody, against other support of the bill that's here? Yes, sir, good morning. You're happy it's Friday too, huh?
Absolutely. I'm Leon Baker, I'm with DCJS, and we would very much like for the state police to be participating in this program. We see that this would be a benefit for our programs, that we have, that people have to submit fingerprint cards. Some of our people submit fingerprint cards on renewal. Others, if they submit their fingerprint cards at the initial and they stay current, then we're at the mercy of them telling us if they have been convicted of a barrier crime. So this would give us information that would keep someone out that shouldn't be there.
Okay, Mr. Baker, thank you, sir. Curtis, do you have a comment? Let me guess, you've already reached out to the governor's office and you like Senator State's bill, right?
I'm getting back and I'm working on that, sir. Just wanted to extend that the administration supports the bill.
Okay, good, thank you. Good to see you too. I know you're glad it's Friday. Okay, any other comments? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Let me go to my board here. Delegate Klein was next in the queue.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just trying to get a feel for what the federal government currently has in its possession. Does it retain fingerprints currently in any of Virginians in any way?
Mr. Chairman, the federal government until 15 or 16, did not retain any fingerprints. So people's fingerprints who were on file prior to then, once they were checked against a criminal history, they were destroyed. Since that time, they are retaining fingerprint cards. Their policies indicate that they are not searching those fingerprint cards, but they are retaining, or electronic submissions, but they are retaining that information at this point. And that is independent of the RAP-back decision. So the FBI has made the policy shift to retain fingerprints regardless of whether an agency is in RAP-back. They are, their policy statements say that they only search those fingerprint records or would cause them to cascade or hit against other records, such as latents from a crime scene in North Dakota or something, for agencies that participate in RAP-back.
Further questions?
Yes.
So this would supplement that existing record with barrier crime information submitted by state police, is that?
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Klein, when you say supplement the record,
Well, you're saying that there's retention of fingerprints independent of RAP-back, but RAP-back allows for the state police to submit fingerprints to FBI, and then those are disseminated when, well, there's a notice as part of the program when there's a new charge or new.
yes, Mr. Chairman, Delegate Klein, RAP-back essentially throws the switch so that those fingerprints that are in the database can be searched against new arrest records, and that information reported back. The FBI's policy right now is, even though they have those fingerprint records from a 2016 fingerprinting, they're not searching them against new arrest records. with wrap back, they would throw that switch and they would do the search.
Okay. So the fingerprints here in Virginia reside in Virginia, but they, well, no, in your case where Tennessee, person would be fingerprinted in Tennessee, and then that record would be bounced against RAPBAC, is that correct? Is that how?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So then they would look in their data to see if there was a match, and then you would be notified so that you can notify the appropriate agency here in Virginia, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Does everybody understand that? Yeah. Okay, Delegate Weber, you had a question.
Yes,
Yeah.
I guess this would be for the State Patrol as well, or the patron of the bill. In the example that they gave, is it possible that somebody could be falsely accused, arrested, and then be suspended or lose their job due to the ability of that school or that entity to be able to access this?
Mr. Chairman, I would say to that, it is possible in the same sense that it's possible for an employer. If you take a local arrest that might hit the paper and that employer, in my example, it was a school division, reacting to the report of the information, it's possible in the same sense there. So with or without wrap-back, a school division or another employer who comes into that information and chooses to take action on that information may take action based on something that the person is ultimately acquitted for. I believe that most employers have processes in place to deal with that. However, that is up to those local employers.
Further question, Mr. Chairman?
I think what you just heard is that your example can happen now.
Further
Yes.
question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Is there a specific example in the state where an employer didn't know that their employee got arrested and it was a big problem for said locality?
I'm not aware of a specific example, Mr. Chairman.
I would probably suggest that there have been cases where people have been falsely accused and fingerprinted and then subsequently acquitted. I'd be surprised if there weren't cases like that. Delegate Will, did you have any questions? You did not. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just if I may, just as an employer who has to run background checks on all of the employees, the other side of the coin is that without having some sort of reporting mechanism, you can have an employee that has cleared up a criminal background check and been fined and been in your employ for a good long period of time. An arrest itself may not trigger you to do anything, but if it's in another state or outside of the locality where it's unknown, unless you rerun a criminal background check pretty regularly, and that can get rather costly, you don't have any way of ever knowing, and you might have somebody in your employ that cleared that background check that really ought not be working there anymore. And this would just, I think, give you an opportunity to at least be watching. I don't think most employers, because you get into problems with things if you don't have policies in place so that it's not a false accusation and that you can take a look at things. But if you've got somebody in your employ that has been arrested, you at least need to be able to watch that and see what the outcome is so you can take the appropriate action.
Let me ask you a question. Does this affect the private sector or is this just government?
Mr. Chairman, there are private sector employers such as in the healthcare fields, nurses and taxi cab drivers are subject to fingerprint-based tow truck drivers. So there are some
and they would be part of this as well.
if they choose to subscribe. Those employers, the
So
same
in
thing.
Delegate Head's example, he runs a company that deals with healthcare management and the care of people. It would be his choice to participate in this or not?
Mr. Chairman, it would be his healthcare company's choice, subject, I suppose, to whatever regulations the Department of Health or the Board of Health would put in place.
He's giving me the north-south, so I think I've got the expert opinion on that, since he's the resident expert in this regard. Okay, Delegate Simon, and then let's go ahead and try to wrap this up, guys, because we've got to.
Real quickly, Mr. Chairman, I just make the same observation Delegate had made. It says here, folks that would be disqualified from licensure. So in the title business, you gotta be a licensed title agent. Somebody gets arrested for writing checks, I need to know about that. And, even if it happens after the initial check. And so that comes through the Bureau of Insurance, and we find out that our licensed title agent, has done something wrong. So I think it's a very valuable service. It's just gonna provide information, and then folks can decide what to do with that information.
Delegate Court.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple questions. So the record that would be received by the employer who signed up for the service would indicate it was either an arrest and or a conviction, or it would just say either or it wouldn't say?
Mr. Chairman, the information received under the RAP-BAC service would be the arrest itself. That's the fingerprinting event. The conviction is not a fingerprinting event, except for cases where fingerprints were not taken upon arrest, which are.
So this is essentially a red flag issue where someone is arrested, their print's hit, red flag goes up, and then you as an employer can say, okay, maybe I better take some action here. And keep this person who was arrested for a barrier crime out of a condition where another barrier crime could happen in your facility. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just.
Yes, please.
Thank you. In other words, the scenario that another delegate on the other side asked about could well happen. The arrest may be in error, and you wouldn't know that.
And I would suggest that that's the condition now, even under current law, without this
Yes,
law.
I agree. I'm not sure I want to exasperate that. Thank you.
Okay, Delegate Gilbert, and then I think we're going to do what we do as a committee. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, so I'm just trying to figure out, it says that this permits you to submit fingerprints for arrests or convictions that are not reported to you. It says not reported to the department. So if this covers things that are not reported to the department, how does the department then authorize the submission of fingerprints for things that you ostensibly don't know about?
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Gilbert, could you provide me the line that you're?
So I'm looking at, are we on the introduced version? Okay, yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Gilbert, the offenses that are not reported to the department is the offenses that they would be advised of through the RAP-BAC program.
Okay. And is that, so that is, even though that's not clearly stated, that will flow from the nature of the program? So the to be advised, that was my next question. What does that mean, to be advised through?
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Gilbert, the department would submit the fingerprints and records to FBI in order that they can be advised through the RAP-BAC service of when somebody's arrested for or convicted of a criminal offense that's not been reported to them. So basically, the way that the language works is the department will submit the records to the FBI, which would then make them eligible to be advised through the FBI of whenever there's an offense committed outside of the jurisdiction that the department would be aware of.
And I may be the only person who doesn't understand what still what's going on, but how do they submit fingerprints for an offense that has not been reported to them?
They would be submitting the fingerprints of the employee, is my understanding, just like how we do in the current fingerprint database, but on a federal level.
Mr. Chairman.
Hang on.
That's all.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Gilbert, the fingerprints that are submitted upon the employment background check are then subscribed to the RAP-BAC system so that new arrest, when that person is fingerprinted in the other jurisdiction and that information is transmitted to the FBI, they hit against each other. So that's what's happening.
So basically, to get to the point, so basically when an agency agrees to participate in this, say DCJS agrees to participate in this, then their fingerprint data would be entered into the RAP-BAC system. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And if the agency didn't agree to participate, their fingerprints would not be placed into the the rat pack system, is that correct?
That's right, Mr. Chairman.
Where do their prints reside now, right now, before this law? I mean, let's say they're all printed, where do those prints reside right now?
They reside both with the state police and the FBI.
Okay, so with the FBI and the state police now?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, again, because in 2016, the FBI changed and they retain them, but they say they don't search them without rat.
Okay, interesting, good, I understand that. So everybody in the committee understands, what the state police just told us, that since 2016, they are existing in both databases now, and what this bill does is create the articulation, how you can connect when there's an out of jurisdiction barrier crime. I understand, I hope you do. Okay, you've heard the bill, there is a motion, is there a motion to report the bill? And there is a motion to report, duly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, committee will vote. Have all the members voted? Okay. Clerk will close the roll. The bill reports 15-4. Senator Cosgrove, thank you for your time. Really important that we understand this bill.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to turn now to Delegate Wright for the remainder of his subcommittee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have Senator Parker with us here this morning, so we'll take him next. His Senate Bill 1315, and since you're ready, you explain.
All right, I'll fire away. Mr. Chairman, this came to me as a request from a constituent who came to me that wanted a foster parent, and according to the way that that social services do these investigations and the way that they have their policies established because of some federal criterias, an individual that wants to be a foster parent has to lock their gun in one area and their ammunition in another area, secure away from any of the children that they may be foster parenting. This individual is a retired police officer, and if an individual wants to protect the safety of their home, you have ammunition locked one place, weapon in another place, there's not accessibility to it. After looking at the way the federal law is structured, there's nothing that prohibits them from locking the gun and ammunition in the same spot, just as long as they secure it. And there's nothing that prohibits them from carrying the weapon on them as long as it's secured with them.
Under federal law?
Yeah, the federal law doesn't prohibit that, just the policy of the department is the one that prohibited it. So what this bill would do would allow an individual that wants to be a foster parent to be able to lock their gun in a safe, secure place with the ammunition, or if they're carrying a weapon on them, be able to carry the weapon on them while they're in the home. If I'm in the car, our gun can be laying on the seat and the foster kid can
So
be in
the
the car.
practical example,
And police officers, police officer cannot even be a
the
foster.
practical example is, so you now are authorized under federal law to maintain your quote, carry rights.
So there's nothing that prohibits it.
Right. And so you walk into your house and you've got it on you anyway. And so you could either keep it with you.
Right.
Or secure it with the ammunition in a locked place, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Does everybody understand the bill?
There's one further element, and that's that the key or combination to the locked closet or cabinet be maintained out of the reach of all children.
Right.
You know?
That's the secure part of it.
Okay, I think I understand the bill. Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a little discussion as a subcommittee. I appreciate the dialogue there. I want to just clarify again. There's a number of federal agencies that are involved in foster care or referrals. Can you clarify with us, since we are changing from the federal recommendations on this, and we're changing from our current regulation for home care, how is it going to impact us? Are we going to lose funding? Is it going to affect us in any way there?
I'll let counsel explain that, but nothing in this bill violates federal regulation.
Mr. Chairman and Delegate Bell, the real issue that we're talking about federal law, but really what we're changing is DSS state regulations. The regulations are stricter than what's required under federal law, and so this would be easing back from the DSS current regulations. The regulations under DSS is what requires the foster parents to keep the ammunition and the firearms in the two separate places, not federal law.
So essentially what you're doing is this law passes, the regulation will have to change that would be permissible to keep the ammunition and the firearm together in the same locked container away from children. Is that correct?
That's correct. And on their person.
Or on their person. I understand. Okay, other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Lopez.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there any data to explain why it's important to have a separate place for the ammunition and a separate place for the gun in a locked container? Is there any data explaining why this was why was this originally put into the regs in Virginia?
I can't answer that, Mr. Chairman.
My experience,
Council can answer that as well?
yeah, my experience is that, someone had an idea and they thought that was a good idea. And
The safety of kids is a pretty good idea, yeah.
Well,
I think the common denominator is you still have both of these things in a locked container away from children. Instead of two locked containers away from children, there's one locked container away from children.
Mr. Chairman, don't you think having them in separate locked containers actually makes it even safer?
No.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just expound on that, nothing prohibits that foster parent today from laying the gun on the seat of the car when the foster kid's in the car. And if we're talking about the safety of the kids, what's more safer than a accessible weapon if something, you have as a foster parent, have the obligation to protect that child if someone breaks in that home. So running from one spot to the other to try to get the weapon is not protecting that child.
I have to remember, I've dealt with arms rooms and security of weapons for my whole career. And you might be stunned to learn that even in Army vaulted storage containers with firearms present, they actually have ammunition in there sometimes. Okay, Delegate Weber.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So as I understood the bill in subcommittee, basically, we're really just conforming to federal law.
Well,
No.
we're not
The federal
conforming
law
to federal law, we're not violating federal law.
Thank you,
Much
Mr.
more permissive.
All right, we're gonna wrap this up, Delegate Simon.
Mr. Chairman, just speaking to the measure here, this is a philosophical shift, and I've heard this argument before, and, the folks from BCDL will trot out a case or two of some child who found his parents' gun and warded off a home invasion as the need for this, and I can just Google children finds gun kills brother and come up with a list of 40 or 50 articles in the last 2 years of kids finding their guns. So the question is, which risk is more likely, which is the one that you think is more important to guard against? We have a difference of opinion about that. I think that taking away this barrier makes it more likely that you're gonna have more kids killed in accidental shootings, and I think that outweighs the risk of needing to defend yourself from a home invader. And that's just where we are on this. I think that the problem we're solving is far smaller than the new problems we're possibly creating. So I would hope that y'all would look at it that way and consider voting no on this bill.
Okay. It would be interesting to see data on that. But my sense is that a weapon with its clip properly stored in a locked container is a pretty safe condition. That's been my experience after 28 years doing this business. Okay, we have a bill in front of us, and I would ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The subcommittee recommended reporting 3-1, and I so moved.
There's a motion to report. Is there a second? Duly second. Comments of the committee? Hearing none, the committee will vote.
sharing of information regarding Virginia concealed handgun permits and the VSIN's network with law enforcement in states that do not recognize a Virginia concealed handgun permit as valid in the state. The bill also requires the Department of State Police to maintain and publish online a list of states that recognize a Virginia concealed handgun permit as valid in the state. The subcommittee recommended report in 4 to nothing. So moved.
Second.
Because we have no data.
Okay.
We don't allow data at the federal level.
Where is the patron? Okay, he was told it was unanimous. Okay, I understand. All right, so you have the bill in front of you. Any comments in the committee? Hearing none, the committee will vote. Okay. The clerk will destroy the roll. I just realized I made an error. State Police, do you have a comment on this bill? Clerk will destroy the roll.
Mr. Chairman, Keenan Hope, the State Police. The department's concern with this is simply that we believe that more information getting out to our law enforcement partners in other states is inherently safer, both for those who are, for instance, subject to traffic stops and the officers themselves.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, administration strongly opposes this bill for the reasons mentioned by the state police, officer safety, and sharing information for investigations. This bill is very similar to a bill that was vetoed by the government in 2015. Thank you.
Thank you. Those in favor? Okay, I apologize to the committee for getting ahead of myself. All right, we have a motion duly seconded to report the bill. Do you have any comment?
No, just
Okay,
working.
all right. NRA supports. Okay. The motion is made, duly seconded. Committee will vote. Clerk will close the roll. Bill reports 14-3. Delegate Wright.
Mr. Chairman, the next bill is Senate Bill 1362. That's Senator Black's bill, and it is an amendment.
Okay. Distribute the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, this might actually be an amendment that's easier to report than distribute. I've got them, but it's only one word.
Okay, why don't you tell us the one word?
All right, the one word is on line 54, after his, insert valid. So now the line reads, provided that such member is carrying his valid military identification card.
Okay, so Delegate Wright, how would you explain the bill to us?
Mr. Chairman, this amendment was just out of an abundance of caution to be sure that the ID was valid. This provides that a member of the Virginia National Guard, Defense Force, or Armed Forces of the United States, or Armed Forces Reserves of the United States, in a non-duty status, may carry a concealed weapon wherever such member may travel in the Commonwealth, provided such member is carrying his military identification. Of course, the reason for this is that these people are here to protect us, and when they go in a non-duty status, they deserve to be able to protect themselves. They're targets of terrorists and other things, and also it would be maybe some situations in which them being armed would be a big advantage in situations that could possibly arise. The subcommittee recommended reporting with the amendment 4 to nothing, and I so moved.
All right, there's a motion to report the bill amended, duly seconded. Delegate Simon.
Mr. Chairman, I guess my question is, what does this do to the bill that we passed at the very beginning of the session? It said 18 to 21-year-old military members could get concealed carry permits. I guess they won't need them now, right? They'll just have their military ID and that'll do the trick?
Counsel?
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Simon, that's correct.
Okay. All right, unless the federal government passes some much-needed reciprocity.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes.
they'd like to go to
Delegate Weber.
Georgia.
Delegate Weber?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. If they'd like to go to Georgia, they'd have to have a concealed carry permit. it's only within the Commonwealth.
Okay. All right, we have a bill seconded duly for us, and so now the committee will vote.
We hear from the public or no?
I'm sorry, destroy the roll. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for, yes, Andrew. I'm watching the clock because I know you guys need to get to your meetings and we need to get to ours, so my apologies to be in haste. Yes, sir.
I'll be sure. Mr. Chairman, Andrew Goddard.
Actually, you're quite tall and we're glad you are.
Oh, okay. Virginia Centre for Public Safety. We oppose this bill on the grounds of we don't want anyone under 21 to be carrying concealed. That's a policy issue with us.
Okay, I understand. Curtis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The administration opposes this bill, supports the military, but the concern about the age limit as well as the current process is not too strenuous as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, Bob Sadler, VCDL. VCDL strongly supports this bill. As a veteran, I support this bill. Thank you.
Okay, are there other comments from the committee? Questions from the? Good report. Okay, motion to report duly seconded. The bill has been amended, so it's a motion to report. Yes. There's a bill to report the amended bill duly seconded. And hearing no other comments, the committee will vote. Has everyone voted? The clerk will close the roll, and the bill reports it up to 3. Is there any other business that come before the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see that complete report, and I'd like to take this time just to thank the subcommittee for the outstanding job they did during this session.
And let me take a second here and thank the committee. I mean, the committee's has done good work. You guys have helped me keep it between the white lines. That's important to do. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your caution when we get in a hurry, and I do really appreciate that. And I want to thank my subcommittee chairs for their hard work. They I know you're overwhelmed, and they have worked very hard. We are not meeting anymore, so thank you very much. The committee will now rise. Oh, and thank the staff, tremendous staff.